Welcome back to another episode of the Boss Juice podcast. With us today, we have Art Robinson of BLK DYMND Rewards. Art, I always say that entrepreneurs venture into the unknown and they turn up new ideas that innovate and inspire others. I think you've started a new business here that has really kind of changed the market of consumerism and how people tend to buy things. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So basically, BLK DYMND Rewards is a cashback mobile application that helps people get rewards or get cash back whenever they make purchases or they spend money. But the thing that we're doing different is we're focusing our niche businesses on Black and brown businesses that are underrepresented on those other mobile cashback applications. So if you're a person that wants to support Black and Bold Coffee and Black Girl Sunscreen, you won't find those on the other cashback applications, but you'll find them on my application. But we're also marrying that with a lot of the local businesses that aren't on those applications, that are kind of too small for those applications. We want to bring those on as well. So local companies like Nabakendo or Natural Beauty Supply, you'll find those on my application. So it's a way to get rewards for supporting underserved Black and brown businesses.
And how did you get into that? How did this idea come about?
The idea came about years ago when I lived in Madison, Wisconsin, born and raised in Wisconsin. I had a directory called the Minority Business Directory because that population of Black and brown people were very small.
I'm sorry, you said you created that?
I created that. I created this directory. It was paper. It went out like once a month and to get people to really buy from these businesses. But over the years, I kind of transformed it to make it more digital. People are on their smartphones. They use their phones a lot more. And what really got me going is that one day my wife was using our credit card to make purchases, and she'll get all these gift cards and rewards to Capital One, to Amazon, to Target, and she'll use those rewards for Christmas gifts. And I'm like, are there any Black-owned businesses on this Capital One Rewards program? And I didn't find any. So I thought, where are they? So I went through a whole search of other cashback applications to see if those businesses were there, and I couldn't find any. So I just said, hey, let's make one. Let's create a space for these businesses and give them a place to get rewarded, to get customers and help them grow.
Cool. Very cool. And that was back in Wisconsin when you had what was it called? The Minority Business?
So the Minority Business Directory was back in Wisconsin about 2003. But BLK DYMND Rewards was more of a recent venture. That occurred around 2019 when I moved to Pittsburgh, and I just had this idea.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. And the minority business listing, was that a business venture, or is that more just a kind of passionate thing for you?
It was a little bit of both. It was a little bit of hobby because I wanted to see how it would work, but I wanted to make it into a larger venture. I wanted to make it into something that would go out a lot more to people, that would grow in the Madison area and then grow into other cities. But that one was just at a different time in my life. I couldn't continue it. Mm-hmm. But that was where the impetus of that idea was started, was to really shine a light, some marketing promotion on these businesses. And that was kind of the impetus of that. And it transformed over the years to more of a digital model with BLK DYMND Rewards.
And did you find that kind of breaking into this niche market challenging, or was it something that you felt people sort of easily supported and embraced?
I thought it was challenging in the market that I was in, which was Wisconsin, because of not a lot of Black-owned businesses there. But I did know nationally, I did know across the country, that was something that was very important. People were really trying to support these businesses and support those restaurants and those services. So outside of that area, it was pretty big. So I was trying to bring that fervor and that passion to that area. But in certain places, it's a big part of people's lives, is what they do. And it's just, easy, not easy, but it's relevant. It's very prevalent in those areas.
That's interesting. So did that kind of inspire the move to Pittsburgh? Why did you come from Wisconsin to Pittsburgh?
Oh, that was basically because I was, at that time, even though I had the Minority Business Directory, I was still a executive in corporate America. My job was in finance, it was in healthcare, and I was still doing the corporate ladder thing, not really an entrepreneur full time. So when I moved to Pittsburgh, I took a job here with Gateway Health Plan to grow into the corporate world and still kind of move up that corporate ladder. So I was not a full-time entrepreneur at that time. But now that I'm here, this venture is totally just 100%. I'm all in, trying to make it work, and I'm an entrepreneur, and realizing that I did like some things about the corporate world that were nice, But being on my own, starting my own company, doing my own business was something that was very important to me. Plus, it just helps me follow my passion of trying to really create some room for these businesses to grow because they need help.
Sure. So going off your financial background, entrepreneurs, it takes a risk to start a business. How much of, if you with your financial background, how much when you're diving into an entrepreneurial venture, because I kind of know a bit about your story. This isn't, Black Diamond Rewards isn't your first sort of, stab at entrepreneurship. How important is the financial piece compared to just the vision that an entrepreneur sees?
I think it's very important, but it differs. Like the vision that the person has is very important because the entrepreneur sees things that nobody else sees. They see something that the world doesn't see, that they have a passion about, and they're going to bring a focus to that. So that's very important. But you need to know your numbers. You need to understand how you're going to grow and what your trajectory is, and what do you need as a investment, or what do you need as recurring revenue? What do you need as those other things? So that's very important to really understand that and put that together. So they're both very important, but the financial piece is what people kind of overlook because they're so excited about what they're doing and their vision and their passion that they forget to think about the numbers.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic because I'm guilty of that. I'm very focused on that's a great idea, that's a great project. Let me just get involved, and it's like you forget that it takes money to make ideas come alive.
Yes.
So, and I know that I know a bit about your story. I know that you've kind of run into that sort of roadblock, and I personally know your story of how you've overcome those challenges, and I've seen you over the last, was it 2 years now, kind of really. Yeah, for the listeners out there, Art has really, he's been an inspiration to me because this guy does not quit. If you don't mind sharing with our listeners a little bit about how, some of the hardships you've encountered with, your previous businesses and with Black Diamond Rewards, because I know that you've hit some major brick walls and you've done nothing but kind of push forward. So if you don't mind sharing that a bit.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that is my philosophy. I kind of think you have to keep moving forward because you're going to find what you're looking for if you continue to be persistent and you're really passionate about what you're doing. But it is very difficult when you're bootstrapping or you can't get funding. We know that some of the hardships with African American entrepreneurs, only 1% of VC funds go to African American entrepreneurs, and that 1% has been going on for years. So I knew coming out, I'm not going to get a crazy amount of money right away, even if the idea is good. No person will just throw me $1 million. So I know I had to really build this thing from the ground up. So I'm using Upwork. I'm using Fiverr. I'm using going to Instagram, looking at all these hacks and trying to mirror them to learn from these things because I have to do these things on my own. And so I'm trying to piecemeal this thing together to kind of do it on my own. And I've run into some major issues. Like the first developers I worked with in Upwork, they took on my job. And that's kind of how we got here. But they took on my job and then proceeded to build the app for me. I paid them money, and then they ghosted me for 6 months. I could not get my information. I could not find my code. And I'm trying to meet this deadline because I'm trying to get the app out, and I cannot get out my information. And so luckily I have some people in Pittsburgh to help me get the information. But that was huge. And without having money and resources just to go find another developer or to hire somebody else, that was a major roadblock. And I was able to get through that, but not having all the resources in the world is very difficult. But you have to kind of be smart, be strategic, and think about what's going to give you the most bang for the buck. Where should you spend your money? What's going to really move the business forward? So it takes a while to really just sit down and be strategic and think about how am I going to spend the resources I have to move this thing forward. And that's what I've been able to do. And it makes me, I think, smarter, leaner. Hopefully get past it one day, but it does make me smarter and leaner as I keep moving forward.
Right. And I think that's an important piece, though, because you have to, as an entrepreneur, you have to really know your business, because I think a lot of people struggle with, you have a million things you want to accomplish or need to do, and you don't know which one is the most important. So you don't know where to kind of, send those funds to or put the money towards. So, yeah, that's interesting.
And one more thing about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
The one thing that I've been able to get is I've worked with a few incubators here in town. Ascender is one of the incubators I worked with, and some great people there were providing me resources. But I met some advisors through the incubator, and having those advisors on my team, sitting with them and saying, these are 3 or 4 things that I want to get done. These are my resources. This is what I think will move the dial, and having them give me feedback. And then having that sounding board means you're not just in your own head saying, I think this will work.
Right.
Having people tell you these are from their experience in the entrepreneurial world, in the VC world, the venture capital world, helping you pick the right one. So that's very important to have those advisors, those mentors, to have a sounding board, because you can think an idea is great, but it's also great to talk to someone else and get their feedback.
Right. No, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things I wanted to dive into on this episode. Is you're one of the few people I know that kind of gone through the incubator programs and have gone through, and talked to some VCs in some of those programs. As an entrepreneur, did you find, it sounds like you found those incubator programs beneficial?
Yeah, I did. Like I said, this local one here in Ascender, they really focus on businesses that are in the beginning idea phase. So if you're in the beginning idea phase, you may have a little bit of a product or really no revenue. They really focus in that area. That's their expertise. And they provide us $5,000 in some seed funding to do a few things, whether it's hire a IT person for a little bit or do some marketing. But what they really provide is a lot of coaching. They provide monthly coaching sessions on marketing, on advertising, on your finances, on VC, on your pitch, all those things that you need to really go to market. And I found that to be extremely helpful. And what they really provide is a one-on-one coach that will meet with you on a weekly basis to help you build your plan and help you build your strategy, go-to-market strategy. And that was just, for a person it's like having a consultant at like $200 an hour every week for free. That's just, I couldn't buy that. So that was incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
So you would definitely recommend a young entrepreneur to come in and try to get into one of those programs?
Yeah, I would recommend, they're online at ascenderpgh.com or ascender.com. Look them up. They have a great program. There are a lot of other incubators in town that I haven't worked with those, but I hear they do a good job as well of really helping a business get access to resources, to mentors, maybe a little bit of funding and grant-wise, but really access to mentors and resources to give them that extra help they need on things they may not think about, whether it's marketing or finance or in things of that nature.
So if you were to give advice to another entrepreneur starting a business, would it be more so to go and find funding first, or find a team of like mentors that could help you formulate this idea further?
I would say have the idea, and then on their own, do some research on the idea and the market before even approaching advisors or funding. I had my idea, and I said, let me see what's out there. And I went through all the other apps, and I on my own and just kind of went through them by myself and did my own research and Googled the cashback market and Googled the gift card market to see how big it is and things of that nature. And then you can find some self-help books to really understand what do VCs and those things look for. And once you do that, and you can say, well, there is a market for this. You may not know how to make it, how to monetize. You may not know how to make it work, but there is a market. It does make sense, and there is a niche. Then from there, I would say, look at your finances, and then see if you can find some advisors, anybody in your network who's done this before, and just have some small conversations, and then talk to some incubators, some advisors. But don't jump to, I have an idea. This is just my opinion, but don't jump from I have an idea to I'm going to go talk to an angel, because it's just an idea. They have a lot of questions for you that you may not be able to answer. You don't want to mess up that opportunity when you do get in front of them. So do some research on your own, flesh it out, and then make those connections.
Right. Yeah. So kind of going off that, the VC route there and then the angel investor, you've obviously been in the room with, pitching your ideas to different VC funds and angel investors. I think that I've never been necessarily in that scenario myself, where I've been pitching my idea to a bunch of different investment firms or VCs. What is that like? Is it a daunting experience, or is it a fun experience? What is that whole experience like?
Man, for me, the great thing about Ascender is that they walk you through a pitch, and you got to do a lot of pitch practice. So you practice your pitch, and they give you some feedback, and they make it better. You do 3 or 4 pitches. So by the time you get through with the program, you're good at pitching. But that's before people who aren't making a decision about investing. When you go before a VC, it is kind of daunting, because you're working in your brain. You're thinking, I have to convince you to invest in me, and you're thinking you're going to do that in 5 minutes. Well, it's not going to really happen in 5 minutes. But that's what your brain is thinking. I have to make you do this. I have to make you invest with me in 5 minutes. So that can be daunting. But I think if you know your material, if you know what your vision and your mission, you have passion, if you relax a little bit and just say, I'm just going to tell you my story, and then I'm going to leave, and then you figure out if you want to invest or not, that takes some of the pressure and the weight off, and then you just kind of go from there and just tell your story. Mm-hmm. But I do think if you have the mindset of trying to convince them in that brief period of time, it's going to be something that's going to make you have a lot of anxiety, because it's just hard. Mm-hmm. Just go tell your story, be passionate about what you do, about what you love, and then leave it alone, because the VC's decision is not based on your product, your idea, or even you. It's based on what they want to invest in, how much money they have, and all these other things you have no control over.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And you had brought up earlier, you said that in the United States, only 1% of businesses are funded, or only 1% of Black-owned businesses are funded by VCs. Was that
correct? Yeah, African-American entrepreneurs have been receiving only 1 to 2% of VC funding, and that hasn't really changed over the last 10, 20 years.
Gotcha.
So it's very difficult to raise money in that area. So it happens. It's just very very low.
And do you feel that is based on kind of what you've been speaking about here about the mentorship and the educational piece of all starting a business? Do you feel that? Why do you feel that is? Do you feel that is because the ideas that African American entrepreneurs are trying to bring to market aren't what VC firms see as investment opportunities, or do you think there's a lack of support around those communities? What are your thoughts on that?
Man, that is a very very deep question, detailed question. There's a lot of different factors into that. I would say one of my opinions is that in the decision-making room, there aren't more people of color in those decision-making rooms. In those firms, it's usually a homogenous group, mostly male. And so they're looking for deals from people who are similar, because they can make that connection. And so without that, the people being in the room to provide differing opinions, differing thoughts, if markets you don't know about are brought to you, you have to trust people who bring them. And that level of trust has not been built up. So I do believe, just from my opinion and what I've read, is that the lack of diversity of the people in the room making the decision leads to all the deals being the same and going to the same type of individual and the same group of people. We have VC funds out there that are now focused on bridging that gap. Harlem Capital and some other ones where they're saying we need to focus on these type of founders because they're overlooked. And so that is important, but I think, and they do have a lot of money and they're trying, but I think that has to be broadened. I think there are a lot of other aspects that we can't get into today, but I do believe that's kind of one of the major reasons I see is that there needs to be more people in the room with different ideas, different opinions, different diversity, so they can let people know why this idea will work. And then I also think that a lot of it is still has a country club feel to it, when country clubs were exclusive to people of color and women, and so people could not get in. And so when you have that, you bring your friend to the table, and your friend group is your close friend group. And then if you don't expand that, it's going to be a situation where it's very hard to get into that room. So most VCs want a warm call or a warm intro. Well, if you don't know people, to get that warm intro, you can't get into the room. So you need to find a different avenue to try to meet people and get to know people. And so breaking down those barriers of getting people to come to see different things and make friends and meet people, then you can break up that network and open up that network, to get more people. So those are a couple of reasons why.
That's interesting. Yeah. And so I'm also curious too about your move from Wisconsin to Pittsburgh. Did you find that, I have kind of two questions about that, just because, on this show, we interview a lot of Pittsburgh entrepreneurs, and I would consider you a Pittsburgh entrepreneur, but what, I always find that, there's a mixed opinion between starting a business in Pittsburgh. Some people say it's a great place to start a business. Some people say that, like maybe I should have started this over in, LA or something like that. What is the entrepreneurial community in Pittsburgh compared to Wisconsin?
I think they have some similarities. And so I had another company that I started called Vistrada, which was an automated budgeting software. And that business was, I worked in health insurance for over 10, 15 years. So I created an automated budgeting software that will allow you to create your budgets and everything online visually. And I did that one full time. I did not raise any capital, but I did sell one subscription and had a customer. So that was doing okay. But the thing is, I couldn't raise capital. So to answer your question, what I find about the entrepreneurial community in both areas is that on the ground level, where the people are, is very helpful. They welcome you in, they talk to you. I found great mentors in Wisconsin. I found great support groups. I found great advisors in Wisconsin. The same thing here in Pittsburgh. But when it came to providing capital, what I hear in Wisconsin is that we hear the same thing in Pittsburgh, is that it's very conservative.
Yep.
People told me every time in Wisconsin, get out of Wisconsin. You won't find any money here. Go to the West Coast or to New York. And when I'm in Pittsburgh, I'm hearing the same thing. They said, you won't raise any money here. Go to the West Coast or go to New York. And so what I find is that they want to be great entrepreneurial communities. They want to be a great place for funding. And at the grassroots level of supporting entrepreneurs with programs, with advice, with the mentors, with advisors, they do a great job. When it comes to supporting entrepreneurs with cash, I think they're very conservative, and they miss out on a lot of great opportunities in both areas.
Yeah, I share that same opinion, at least about Pittsburgh, where we have great universities, we have great,
yes,
like you said, programs like a Sender where they can help get your idea off the ground. But even with the clients in my industry, they struggle a lot with finding that capital. And yeah, that's why I've been kind of interested in your whole VC experience. And so you've talked to some VCs here in Pittsburgh, though, correct?
I've talked to more on I met them at some event, and we had really just more congenial or just conversations, not pitching. So I haven't pitched to any VCs here. I've spoken to 3 or 4 VCs just to talk about the idea, get their feedback, learn about the market, and learn about their company, to let them know I will be on my way to meet you to pitch, but never to pitch. So I haven't pitched any VCs. I've pitched 2 VCs back in Wisconsin for my other company, Vistrada, and didn't get funding, but that was a learning process.
Sure.
But here I haven't pitched any VCs, but I've met a few and talked to a few.
So speaking about the previous business, you said it's called Strata?
Vistrada.
Vistrada.
Visual Strategy is a great name.
Gosh, I like
Vistrada.
that. And I guess you were in the financial industry, in the healthcare industry, and that just came about out of what? What specific need kind of pushed you in that direction?
So like I said, I worked in healthcare a long time, and I would build the budgets for my company every year. And we built it in a certain way in Microsoft Excel. We're using macros and using formulas, and I was looking at things out there in the market to streamline our process for my analysts. And most things didn't fit because what we did was so unique. So I went and I talked to other healthcare firms that were in our non-competitive group to go, what are you using to do your budgets? And everybody used Excel, and everybody had the same issues. And I'm like, what if we built a tool that would handle that? So I went and tried to create this tool that would automate the budgeting process, make it easier for people to put inputs, connect to their database, and provide outputs that would help the company grow. So that was the impetus for that. I just saw a need out of what I was doing at my job and what the other corporations were doing. I saw that need, so I decided to build something.
Cool. And is that still around, that software?
It's still on my, it's somewhere. It's somewhere, I tell you. Nobody's using it. If I call my old developer back in Wisconsin, I'm sure he knows where it's at, but it's somewhere.
That's cool. That's actually a good idea, though, because I struggle with budgeting, and I've been trying to find a software that kind of meets all my needs, and most of them don't. At least for like a smaller business. I'm sure there's better software for like the larger corporations, but not for like that small to medium sized business.
Yeah, it's very difficult to find those for small, medium sized businesses. This is a few out there, but it's hard. They have them for larger enterprises, mostly for people at my size. I don't know how your size. You're using Excel. You're doing spreadsheets and formulas and macros, and then as you grow, you go, let me get this product or that product. Right now, it's just smaller. Yeah.
Cool. And did you find, so based on those two businesses, did you find, I'm curious because your new business, Black Diamond, is more focused on the consumer, you know, and like, you know, and minority owned businesses, but you know, like you're kind of, you want to entice consumers to download the app and use it. Whereas Vistrada, you know, it's more of like a business kind of unit, you know, B2B sales. Do you find it easier to break into a market with just consumers or with a business as your customer?
That's a good question. I find both of them just extremely difficult to break into. But I do say that for this venture here, it's easier to do the B2C sales because you're just getting people to download the app. They could download for free. If I have a compelling marketing or a compelling thing to say, they can just download it. They have an impetus to do it because they want to support these businesses. I need to just say, this is the tool you can use. So now that my app is kind of complete, I'm ramping up my marketing and I'm making those pitches to people that, hey, this is the tool to help you reach your goal. And with that, I will build my B2B side with the app because they'll say you have consumers, you have users, then that will make it easier to go to the business and say, hey, I have 100,000 users. They're not using your business. You should get on my app. On the Vistrada, which was more of an institutional sale to an institution, and you're changing their entire financial budgeting process. You're changing the entire thing. That has to go through the CEO. That has to go through the CFO. Then the person who's actually going to use it, the director of financial planning and analysis, you have to convince that person. So that's a longer 18-month sale.
Right.
With this, if I can convince a lot of users to come on, which I would think we'll be able to do, you're talking to a business owner like yourself, sole proprietor, I'm talking right to you. You should be on the app. So it's not a lot of bureaucracy in that sale. So I think this one with Black Diamond has its challenges, of course, but it's easier than trying to sell an institutional product to a business that's been around for 20, 30 years, and you have to convince 4 layers of people. It's just different.
Yeah, that is true. You know, I think, you know, with a free product on the consumer side, you know, people have that mentality, oh, I'll give it a try, you know, and, but that brings up another interesting kind of topic of discussion here. When, you know, as an entrepreneur, as you're developing a product, you know, and you've developed, it sounds like 2 different software products in your lifetime. You have one that people pay to use up front, and then one that is, you know, free to download and free to use up front. On the Black Diamond side, where the download is free, how important is product development in launching your business there? Because, you know, you and I personally talked about this before, but when someone downloads that app, it's like a podcast. You know, the first, you know, 60 seconds they listen to it, it's either they're gonna stay or they're gonna jump ship. You know, I think product development is the same way. You know, the first 2 minutes they're downloading that, they're either gonna dive deep into it or they're gonna jump ship. You know, what has your experience been around product development in that nature?
I think it's been sort of what you described. You have to build a product knowing what how the user is going to use it, and build it to their specifics as much as you can to ensure they continue to engage with your application. So that's why it's important, I think, to have your idea, maybe have a mock-up. Don't spend too much money. Do not spend too much money building an app. Have an idea and then go talk to potential people. Before I even spoke to a developer, before I spoke to an advisor, I went and got this UI UX for free. I made a mock-up and showed like 20 people. This is what I'm trying to do. What do you think? And I got their feedback. How would they use it? What does it look like? And then I went from there to the next step of trying to build a small MVP with as little money as possible to see how people use it. And I talked to product development people. I met a few people in my network that I've said who build products for large banks, for large companies, and about the importance of UI and UX, user interface or user experience. That's what that means. So the importance of that, so that you can get people through your app to constantly engage with it. So I think that's very important because people will put your app down. And even for me with Black Diamond, my first iteration was made and people downloaded it and didn't use it. And then I was sent a survey to people. Why aren't you using it? What aren't you finding? And it didn't have all the functionality, which I understood. It didn't have like 3 important things, but they weren't engaging at all. And so finding out what those things were with this new iteration, we added that functionality. And then we were also adding a way to constantly stay in touch with the customer to get them to know what deals we have, where are the discounts at, how they get great cash back. You can easily get points. Having those conversations and continually talk to the person is very important. But that's what I say about product development. It's key.
Yep.
It's key.
So over your journey, you've gotten a lot of feedback from different, advisors and, friends and kind of showing them those, those different product mock-ups. So over your, I guess my question here is, as an entrepreneur and, to give some advice to other entrepreneurs around, when you have a vision for a product or a service that you want to bring to market, everyone has an opinion. So you're going to get feedback as like, that's a dumb idea. Oh, that's a cool idea. Oh, I wouldn't do it this way,
Yeah.
and you kind of have to weed that out. I know that in your experience, you've faced a lot of kind of pushback or, people, just kind of being engaged with you over the past couple of years. I've seen people kind of tell you, this idea is good, but you should go this direction. But you've been very, how do I say it? Not strong-headed, not hard-headed, but like, you've taken the advice and you kind of gone with your gut or your vision for your company. How would you advise entrepreneurs to kind of weed out I don't know if it's bad advice, but like, not take everything to heart? Because I think that's one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with is, they get their idea out there and people come in and they say, oh, that's cool, but you should do X, Y, and Z. So then they take all the resources and they try to do X, Y, and Z, but it's like, maybe that's not the product that you envisioned to build. So how would you advise people to kind of, take feedback, but still stay on track with your vision?
Sure. I would say listen to people and listen to what they have to say and take it into a certain point and don't be afraid to hear that your product may not fit this or may not fit that, because it's not a personal thing. Nobody's saying anything negative about you or your product. Take all the information in, and when I weed it out, I test it. I can go find resources, I can go find data, I can research things, and I can look at, should you go down this path or go down a certain path? What makes sense to add to your business? What makes sense to keep out of your business? And so I would say, take it in and just think about it. Realize that people can't see what you see because it's your vision and your idea. And so their advice is just built on how they see it. But don't take it to heart where it makes you change everything. But if there's something that comes across that's really good, realize that might not, it may fit, but it may fit in your version 2 or version 3. People are giving me some great ideas, and I'm like, man, that's great. I'm gonna put that in version 3 because the money to build that I don't have right now. But yeah, I would like to get down that road one day. So I put that on the back burner. I might write it down and say, in version 3, I add a feature. I heard yesterday somebody said, well, you have on your application where people can just purchase right through your app and get the discount. I go, sure, I'm gonna have that in version 3. I can't put that in right now because I don't have the clientele or the capital. I have to grow that. So I would say the ideas that people have, because they see where you're at and they want you to be a 15-year company with 40 million in capital. And you're like, I don't have that. Right. So I do think your idea is valid, but I have to put that in a different version. But if you have to make slight changes, small things that will get you down the road. If they say you're focused on this niche here, but this niche is really one that's really spending a lot of money in your niche, maybe you should give them a few Instagram ads or do this. Listen, it might move you down the path that you go, oh yeah, that is wide open. But I always say, don't be afraid of good advice. Take it to heart, test it, talk to other people, and then make up your own mind about how you want to go. And some things may fit, they just may fit later into your product's life cycle.
So what are some examples of feedback you've gotten from different mentors over the past couple of years that you thought, hey, that was good, or hey, thank you for the advice, but
Okay, so I talked about one, buying people can people purchase through my app? not today. But I think that's a good idea to have because that keeps them on the app and lets the business know, I'm bringing this thing. So I think that will be there. As you know, my app is built around supporting businesses that are Black and brown focused, because there are 20 other applications on the market and they have just 2 or 3 businesses on there that are Black and brown focused. So I was talking to one group and this one guy said, "Hey, what about this for Polish people?" And I was like, I keep that one in mind. I don't know why. It's like, I'm sure there's an app for that. I'm like, but there are 20 applications that kind of fit that market already. This is totally different, but I keep it in mind. And so that one I put on the back burner. But I do think that there are other niches, veteran owned, woman owned, LGBTQ owned, that kind of fit this niche that I'm like, oh, those are great ones. Let me put that on the back burner. Mm-hmm. I can't do it today. I'm focused on this one. But as I go forward, those might fit in later. So it's just that there are some other ones that I can't remember right now, but I do know there are some that just didn't fit. Or even ones where say you should be a directory, and I'm like, it's not that I'm a pseudo directory.
Right.
There are 20 other directories in the world, in the market. Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Black-owned directories. Even one in Pittsburgh, Cocopreneur, is a directory. I'm not a directory. I am a cashback reward system. So I'm different. So you can find a business here. I'm rewarding you for shopping there. So I'm a little bit of both. So I don't want to just be one or the other. I want to be a little bit of both. So those are things where you kind of go, okay, I get where you seeing it from, but from my point of view, I see it kind of this way.
Right. So what is your process for finding businesses to work with? How does that work? And have you run into difficulties around, making sure that a business actually is minority owned, or how does that work?
It's basically a hand-to-hand combat right now, or a hand-to-hand touch. I'm really engaging where I find, like, say you go to a city or a website, you go, these are the Black-owned businesses in Philadelphia. I pull the information, I pull the website, I look at the website, look at the About Us, I go, yep, and I do some checks, and then it's phone calls, and then it's emails and things of that nature. So I use other resources like directories. There are articles that come out. Best Black businesses to shop in Oakland. Okay, I use that, pull that information into my database, and I start making phone calls, make inquiries. So I stay on top of things like that. I go to the state minority. They have minority business classifications. I use that as well. I go to the chambers of commerce in each city that has a Black chamber of commerce. You have the African American Western Pennsylvania Chamber of Commerce here. I use that as a resource. So those are how I kind of find ways to find the businesses. And then it's more, since it's me, I'm sending emails, phone calls, checking it and verifying myself. Now, there are a lot of businesses that are in Target or Walmart that were initially Black owned, and then they were bought out. Like, say, Bevel started Black owned for years, bought out. So now it's Black founded. They're still on my application because of their history. Same with Honey Pot. They're still on my application because of their history. So it's just, that's how I kind of do it. It's just me doing it right now, and then hopefully get the team to really verify it. Mm-hmm. But that's our focus. And I want to be clear, our app would probably have 95% Black owned. We'll still have other companies there, small businesses that need help, but that's just our focus and our niche.
Sure.
Because we think that market is overlooked, but I'm pretty sure we'll find a business that really needs help or fits, and we're like, yeah, sure, we'll get them on the app and things of that nature. But right now, we'll probably be 90-95% is where it's going to be.
And so how has the response been from these minority-owned businesses? Has it been positive? Is the community kind of behind this? Or
yeah, it's been great. They when they hear about the idea, they love it. They instantly want to get on the application, and that's been awesome because I've been able to meet people, have conversations, learn what are their struggles, what are they really struggling with, what are their pain points, what are they succeeding at, how are they navigating capital, how are they navigating customers, and things of that nature. So it's been really positive, and they hear about the idea because they understand that there's a need. There's a need to market and promote in this area, and it gives them another avenue other than their own social media, because most of these companies can't afford media print, radio print. So they need other ways to get out. and we will provide that. And as we build our user base to millions of people, it will give them a chance to really speak to those directly to their users and their customers and grow their business.
I know right now you're primarily focused in Pittsburgh and kind of focusing on those Pittsburgh-based businesses. And obviously you have, inspirations to grow into other cities. But what is your kind of end goal with Black Diamond Rewards?
It is to be a national business within 3 years. And when people think of Black businesses, they think of Black Diamond Rewards. My goal is to be in their mindset, and it's a habit that when they making a shopping decision where they're going to go shopping, they look to see what's in their area, what's possible, what's close by. And so it's to grow here in Pittsburgh. I'm growing regionally into different areas with different partnerships over the next 2 or 3 weeks. And then after we get a regional growth, to be a national organization and really grow and have this in every major city. Everybody's using it, have 10 million customers download it, use it on an annual basis. That's kind of the big goal. Yeah.
And so how do you get there? Is it you having a big marketing push right now? Like what is the driving factor to get there?
So right now, the first driving factor was to get the app to do all the functionality, which is complete. So it does everything we needed to do, sign people up easily, find a business easily at Target or Walmart locally. You can locate a business very easily that's close by you, and you can download a receipt and get points, and you can get rewards. So it does everything we needed to do. So that part is done. Now the push is to sign up businesses, get them to be, because they are our paying customer, get them to sign up, get them on board, and then advertise and push through their social media to their users and customers. But then I'm trying to find a marketing plan to grow, to have a strategy. Pausing. So then our next focus is to really develop a marketing plan to grow. So I'm talking to companies right now about how to grow this nationally. How do we increase our lead gens? How do we market to different people? And how do we grow our business? We're trying to grow our customer channels, where we work through channels to grow our user base, as well as just a national program or national marketing plan. So that's what we're thinking about. All that is expensive. I've done the numbers. It requires capital. So I'm looking at, how I'm going to do this, but I have some workarounds. I'm trying to figure it out. But I think initially I have a very inexpensive marketing plan to grow regionally, to create that, show some traction, show some numbers to investors, and hopefully raise some investment money, and then from there do the larger marketing plan. Yep.
Gotcha. And so I know that to get to this point, it's been a long journey. You started this back in 2019. If you could give some advice to people listening who would want to be an entrepreneur and want to start a software business like yours, or really any business, how would you advise them to be patient? Because you've been very patient. There's been multiple iterations before you got to this point where now you're ready to kind of really push this product out in the market. How do you stay patient?
I think,
or positive. How do you stay positive?
I think that the one thing I would say is stay positive, right? And find affirmations. So we're going to be honest on your podcast. This is weird. I have Peloton at the house.
Dude, you're kidding. I
have Peloton.
I'm very upset about Kendall Toll leaving.
So I have Peloton. I got a treadmill. I don't do the bike, but I do the treadmill. And there's one young lady named Kristen. She runs, and she does affirmations. And I tell you the truth, I'm doing my entrepreneurial journey. I get on a treadmill with her for 30 minutes, and she does these affirmations, and I go, all right, I feel better now, mentally and physically, because it just says you have to stay focused on what you're doing and know that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So I would say find something that gives you those affirmations that keeps you positive and keeps you going, and realize that even when you go to Instagram and somebody says, I opened my business in 6 months, I got to 1 million, forget those people. Be happy for them, but don't try to be like them. Just be you. When you get there is when you get there, and stay on task and keep moving forward, but find a way to stay positive, find a way to get affirmations, to get support, and then eventually you'll get to your goal.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece, is I think a lot of entrepreneurs, even myself included, struggle with, we look 30,000 feet ahead and we see, I want to be here, and I see other people here, and you get very upset with yourself, and you're like, you feel like a failure, So yeah, I think that's interesting advice, to kind of just almost be present and, make small pushes forward.
Yeah. No, I think that's very important. You have to learn how to be comfortable with yourself, and just read books about people who took a while to get there. Ray Kroc, Abraham Lincoln, a lot of others took a long time to get where they need to go, and that's fine. And just know that if you really are passionate about what you believe in, if you really are focused on what you believed in, and you're not just doing busy work, but doing things that are moving your company forward, eventually you'll get there.
So you mentioned Ray Kroc and Abraham Lincoln. What is one of your favorite kind of entrepreneurial stories from a different entrepreneur? Because I like to read those same type of books about different entrepreneurs and their entrepreneurial journey.
Wow. I read one a while ago about the guy who started Black Enterprise magazine.
Okay.
And I forget his name, but I read his book about how to build a business while being Black. And this was when I first had my journey. And he was around when he worked with the NAACP or some organization, I forget. But after Martin Luther King got shot, and they were trying to figure out how to have the funeral and what to do, and he was in the Army, and he said, how do we put this together for this procession? He kind of just stepped up and raised his hand, and nobody knew who he was, but he was ready to just take charge and be a leader. And then he gave his journey from doing that to creating one of the best magazines for businesses in the country. And so reading that book and his journey, and I don't have the specifics because it was a while ago, but it was about perseverance. It was about being flexible with your goals and your missions, and adjusting to how things are happening around you, but to continue forward and always continue forward. Be flexible. You might move to the right, you might move to the left, but move forward. And that was one of the things that I got from his book, and I just really enjoyed it. And I read one about Rockefeller. It was huge. I think I got through like 80% of it. But his journey, because at that time you didn't go to business school, you just got a job at some place. You didn't. There was no business school to teach you. You just learned through whatever you did. So reading his story and how he built his monopoly and how he remembered almost every detail, that was like really important to me, to know things and to remember things and to be in touch with your people. And he made small changes that would just be millions of dollars in savings. So it was just really, those are the things that I picked up over time from kind of those two books, those two titans of the industry. Yeah.
So what has been kind of, in your personal journey, your biggest, learning experience, or your biggest roadblock they've had to kind of push through?
My biggest learning experience is that for me, as I do my entrepreneurial journey, I've never done my entrepreneurial journey where it's just been me by myself. I have a family that's pretty big, 7 kids in total, and I have like 3 kids at home right now that are very young. So I still coach basketball. I still coach softball. I still, spend a lot of time with the wife. And so it makes it clear, family is not a roadblock, but you have to spend time with family. You cannot, put them to the wayside. It's just not conducive to just life. And plus I enjoy it, because this is the thing about teaching my kids. When I'm teaching my kid how to ride a bike, I tell them don't quit, that I can't quit my entrepreneurial journey. So that keeps things in line too. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess if I can't tell them not to quit, then I quit. So I got to keep going. But that's been the thing where I've been doing it side by side with that. So I've never been 100% where I can just go 80 hours a week on this. It's just not what I can do. And so I think it makes me work at a pace that's smarter and more efficient. Would I say it slows me down? I would say it makes me work more efficient. That's what I would say. I have to be more efficient with my time. I have to really regulate my time. So when they're sleeping or at night, I might be upstairs with 3-4 hours on my computer and say, this night I can't work. It's date night. I got to spend time with the wifey and things of that nature. So that's what has always been my entrepreneurial journey. It was always with my family. It's always with my family, and that's just what I do. But it's not really a roadblock. That's all, just something I have to do.
I like what you said about kind of using it as like a teaching experience for your kids, you know, about like, you know, don't quit. Cause, and, you know, if you don't mind sharing, you'd share with me the story about your son, you know, what he wrote in his school paper or something like that.
Yeah, my son, he's in second grade, and he had to write about his hero. And before I go into what he wrote, I was one of the 9 semifinalists for the Uprise program. And I pitched there, and I was up to win $150,000. And I thought I was going to do pretty good. And I invited my family to come, and I didn't win. I didn't win any money. And after the thing, my son was inconsolable. He was in the seat just crying his eyes out. And I had to go back and hug him and tell him it's going to be okay. And I told him, don't worry about it because Daddy doesn't quit. I'll apply for Uprise next year. So he wrote that so that was last October. Mm-hmm. So this year he wrote for who his hero was, and he goes, my hero is my dad. My hero is my dad because he started a business that's going to support Black businesses, and he is going to apply for the Uprise, and he's not going to quit until he wins the Uprise prize. So that is he inspired me because honestly, son, I was not going to do it, but now I'm going to apply for Uprise again.
Now you have to.
It's my 3rd year applying, and this year I've gotten closer, so I'm going to apply again. But my teaching him not to quit, he inspired me not to quit. And so that is I just love that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I like that story too. Cause when you told me that, I was like, yeah, you know, now you have to.
I have to. Yeah. I have to do it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So Art, you know, this has been a great kind of conversation here. You've given a lot of great advice for entrepreneurs, but before we wrap up the show, I just want to ask you our famous last question. Mm-hmm. If you could give one word of advice to a young entrepreneur or someone who wanted to start a business, what would that be?
It would just be 2 words. Stay positive. Stay positive. You're going to move backwards. You're going to move to the side. You're going to move a little bit off your journey. Life's going to happen. Your car's going to break down. Things are going to happen, but stay positive. Stay stay focused, and then you get where you need to go. And as I always say, just if you shoot, I forget the phrase, if you shoot for the moon, you be among the stars, whatever. Even no matter what, if you achieve your goal or not, you are going to be further ahead than when you were. I did Vistrada. I did not sell all of the business. I didn't get capital, but I was further ahead than what I was by not starting it. So when I do Black Diamond, the lessons learned from that experience I've used to fuel this experience, and I haven't made those same mistakes. So stay positive, you'll get there.
I like that. Sometimes it's hard, you know, because I think as entrepreneurs, you hit roadblock after roadblock. So I like that. Stay positive. Cool. Well, Art, thank you so much for coming on. This was great.
Oh man, I
appreciate you sharing your story.
All right, thank you very much. I love being here.
Yeah, and why don't you tell people a little bit about how they could, you know, download your app? And
Sure. If you're interested in supporting Black and brown businesses here in Pittsburgh or anywhere in the nation, and they can be found locally in your city or even at Target or Walmart, go to www.BLKDYMND Rewards.com, and you'll be able to download the application, and you'll be able to get rewards and points and very quickly. So thank you very much for your support.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for coming on, Art. Appreciate it.
No problem.